next speaker is Arun Krishnaswamy. He is Director of Data Science at Workday. Welcome, Arun.
Hey, thank you all. Thanks for the opportunity. I think it's going to be interesting that I'm going to dive into a topic which is slightly in tangential to what Pavandeep was talking about. He's talking about the whole future. I'm going to talk about a topic which is basically could put like a nail in the coffin on the future, like why we need to be very careful. So it's interesting. I'm followed up with Pavandeep. But let me start sharing my screen. So give me a second. Yeah, and then, okay, I hope everyone can see my screen. And then, okay. So the topic, I think I can start, right, Anna? Okay, cool. So data poisoning, and so what I'm interested in is basically, Pavandeep's great talk on, what's the future and stuff. But as it happens that there's so much progress which is being made on, machine learning models, deep learning, and, like a whole bunch of things where we are trying to mimic humans. At the same time, what has happened is obviously, in the world of cybersecurity, as technology improves and things like that, there is these hackers who are constantly trying to be on par with the technology. And they are like usually few years ahead of where the current technology is. And they're trying to get ahead of the race so that they can actually hack the systems and stuff. So I'm going to kind of, it's more like an informational, it's not like a very deep dive into this topic. I would obviously, in an offline mode, I'm very passionate about this topic. We can talk more. But just an introduction on what are the things which we need to be careful when we start into, deep learning techniques and stuff. How do we prevent cybersecurity attacks and stuff? I mean, I'm not going to focus on a lot of the different ways attacks happen because that would take like a lot of time. So I just picked one specific topic called data poisoning, which is actually happening already. And there are a lot of examples which I can quote on why this is happening. And how do we generally do certain things to kind of prevent something from happening, like most of the basic stuffs which we can talk about. So that's my topic. It's kind of talking about how do you prevent, as a lot of things, it's kind of a big threat. Data poisoning is a big security threat, and it's happening. And the way it happens is we use training data all the time. And the way it happens is like a hacker gets hold of the training data, or he basically manipulates the training data. It can ask like how this happens and stuff. The training data is something in general doesn't happen. But when you talk about deep learning systems in particular, they're more susceptible because many deep learning models, especially the ones you use for image classification and things like that, are sort of pre-trained models, and then you build something on top. Things like even transfer learning is also susceptible. And the interesting part is deep learning systems are all working towards automating what humans do. Like as Pavandeep was talking about, it's all about automation. And once you put something into the system, you automated the deep learning system. And there is a lot of things which has happened under the hood of in terms of training and stuff. And if a hacker is able to get hold of anything which as part of the training data and stuff like that, he can manipulate it very easily. And the interesting thing is, although people think, okay, we are not there, but it's not very hard to do it. And what I'm going to walk you through is a couple of examples just to motivate you on the topic. And well, like, so for example, in this example, which comes from a famous paper, which talks about, it's called a poison data set. So the left one side, we have like an, deep learning model trained on like classes of fishes class. It's a classification problem. And then it can easily be poisoned with, images of dogs. And on the right side, you have like a dog class, and then you can easily do the same thing with the fishes. The idea here is that you can actually introduce data which actually kind of makes the target getting misclassified. And then the thing is that you can do it in such a way that you can actually do this misclassification with very high confidence that you don't even realize that your system is working. And when you look at all the parameters and the model evaluation parameters, it looks like everything is fine. But under the hood, it's actually doing a lot of misclassification. And it's also doing it very high confidence that it's kind of you're completely, the automation is also, making it worse, that you will actually take a while before you actually kind of realize, oh, data has been poisoned and stuff. It's very classic with any cybersecurity attacks, like the ones which happen in Sony and other places, where the realization comes only after all the things has happened. So, and cyber security attacks are always like clandestine, it's all happens under the hood. And with so much automation focus, there is a very big possibility that we might miss out on, these kind of data poisoning issues and stuff like that. And one more thing, which is very easy to understand as well, like the previous one was data mining classification. And the second one is feedback attacks. So there was a very, very famous example where, and this is something very commonly happens, where a particular application in Apple Play Store and Apple App Store was kind of completely attacked, where a lot of people basically gave a 1-star rating, and that kind of took the beating huge amount. And then because of the overwhelming negative feedback, the app, which was actually at the top at that time, went to the bottom. And so this can happen to any businesses actually. So if someone wants to target you and they want to bring you down, then this is a possibility. And these things happen because of reasons that usually feedbacks are not monitored that much, and then there is a lot of systems which are actually built on top of these feedbacks. For example, I mean, just to give an example, even in Netflix, a lot of things depend on an entire ML systems, not just Netflix. A lot of ML systems are built on feedbacks. And if you attack the core element of getting feedback, which is very instrumental for the mission or the ML models to learn more, and if you attack that part, then the learning is kind of completely messed up. So that can go anywhere. And there's so much, again, going back to the automation, because of all this automation happening, then all these things trigger very fast. And suddenly you are basically delivering very low value to your end customers, and which is very detrimental to the entire business. So it's kind of very, and this is happening. It has happened, it's happening, and it'll happen. So it's like, it's not going anywhere. So it's kind of designed. And also it's kind of, it does not mean that someone is dying to do it deliberately. There could be a lot of reasons why these things happen. So we got to be aware of what's going on and stuff. But so now that I've kind of motivated you on some of the problems, let me put some kind of understanding of, I explained 2 different types, but there could be many. But I just, for the lack of time and things like that, I wanted to be very cognizant of that. So there are 2 types. One is called the model skewing, which is basically the one I talked about earlier, where the classification is, like you can easily shift the learning boundary by the classifier categorizes as a good input, and then you can basically, it kind of skews the whole model with some poisoning of the data. And obviously that was the first example, and it's usually referred to as model skewing, model manipulation, or classification, or like it has several terms, but in generally all they are trying to do is skew your model to some extent. And you change the results and the overall effect, in the long-term effect, is going to be also very bad. And the second one is the other example I talked about in general, is the weaponization of the feedbacks. And then what really happens is that there is for example, the feedbacks are attacked, and then the thing goes down, and immediately there is a lot of impact on, like, say, App Store might decide, hey, this is a very low, you never get promoted and things like that. So the impact is very clear, like what's the thing, right? And it can be done for many reasons. Can attempt to take down the competition, or exacting revenge, or they can also be doing it to covering their tracks. It's basically do it in such a way that you're never able to track what's going on, like you camouflage things. So that is that's a possibility. That's another one which usually happens. And you can ask me, like, so now that I'm motivated, these are things happening. So these are not in the radar of many, even for CIOs and stuff like that, because we are so much focused on building AI solutions and stuff like that. And now these problems of data poisoning or adversarial neural networks and other things are actually coming up. They are not still in the radar yet. But I'm thinking 5 years from now, people would be talking about this as a big topic, because this is going to be super critical into making sure that all our AI automation is kind of, we don't get into the cyborg world of Terminator or anything, but the one way we can actually get to it is through these attacks. So I just wanted to kind of motivate on that front. And then there's some of the different strategies which I'm very passionate about. I'm actually constantly thinking about it, is to kind of introduce few things. These are not generally, these are just a gamut of some of the strategies. There's a lot more. We can actually use AI, two different AI too. There are a lot of things. You can build models which will different models. There's so many things which there's a lot of literature going on. So what I would say is going towards building some sort of a pen testing for ML models, which basically means there is classic pen testing for your applications and stuff, but we have to build more like test suite, which recognizes, training data and then secures ML models and things like that, and do it as part of your, development strategy and such. There are a lot of startups which are actually doing this, like CubeLake and quite a few of them, Silanes and stuff. So there are a few startups which are actually working on the specific problem of building pen testing for ML models. And so that is the kind of what the ML machine learning or artificial intelligence needs to go into. That's basically where we need to get there. And obviously you can always do a lot of sensible data sampling, and you can always see the amount of examples you can use on all, because hackers basically are going to flood it. They are like, people are very famous with DDoS attacks and stuff. Hackers are always looking at volume and stuff. So you can actually limit the examples some user is contributing towards your training and things like that. And then you can also use decaying weights depending on the number of examples. So you can always weight them. And one more thing would be, which we do even in Workday a little bit, is to do benchmarking with previous versions and kind of have a model in production, kind of have some sort of a gatekeeper version always available, so that you're not having a big experience degradation and stuff. And this is goal sets is something people do this all the time, but those things can also prevent. But this is very common. And that's the last thing is about the feedbacks, is to kind of disconnect the feedback and the model penalty as much as possible. Basically have a disconnect and then have a processing in between to kind of validate what is really happening in the feedback and stuff. I think that comes to the end of my presentation, so that I think I'm on time, maybe like few more minutes for any questions. Yeah.
Sure.
I hope I motivated enough people to start thinking about this one. So.
If there's a question out in the audience, please go ahead and type it in the Q&A or the chat. And actually, we do need to move to our next speaker. We will have Arun, if there is a question, do post it, and then we can actually answer it in the background. Okay, thank you so much, Arun.
That's good. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for the time. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Cause I'm in the stars tonight, so watch me